One random hookup became the most painful lesson of my life. I never believed that a single night could reroute an entire life, like one wrong exit on a dark highway that you only realize was wrong miles later, when there's no way back without turning around completely. But here I am, years later, still tracing everything back to that one night, that one stranger, that one version of myself who thought she understood loneliness, desire, and control, and was wrong about all of it. I'm writing this now because people always say everything happens for a reason, and I don't know if that's true, but I do know that some things happen and then refuse to let you go. They cling to you. They sit in your chest when you wake up. They whisper to you when you're alone. And this is one of those things. At the time, I was 31, recently divorced, living in a small apartment that still smelled faintly like the life I'd planned and lost, and pretending to my friends, my coworkers, and myself that I was fine, that I was enjoying my freedom, that I was finally learning who I was outside of marriage. But the truth was that I came home every night to silence so loud it felt like pressure in my ears. And I filled that silence with noise, with wine, with random TV shows playing in the background, just so I wouldn't have to hear my own thoughts. That night started like any other, boring, heavy, uneventful, until my friend dragged me out, literally dragged me, saying I couldn't keep hiding in my apartment like a ghost of a person, saying I needed to feel alive again. And I remember standing in front of my closet, staring at clothes that no longer felt like mine, wondering when I'd stopped recognizing myself, when I'd become someone who needed to be convinced to leave her own house. The bar wasn't special, just one of those dimly lit places where people go to forget their week, their mistakes, their partners, their loneliness. And I remember thinking I'd stay for one drink, maybe two, just enough to say I tried, and then go home. And then I saw him. That sounds cliché, I know. Like every bad decision starts with, and then I saw him. But that's exactly how it felt. Like the room shifted slightly, like something adjusted in the air. He wasn't the most handsome man there, not by conventional standards. But there was something about him that made my eyes keep returning. Something calm and steady in the way he stood, leaning against the bar, like he belonged exactly where he was. We made eye contact, one of those brief, accidental moments that you could easily ignore, except neither of us did. He smiled, not overly confident, not aggressive, just warm. And I remember thinking how rare that felt, how tired I was of men who looked at me like I was a conquest or a distraction. He came over eventually, and the conversation was easy in a way that immediately disarmed me. No awkward small talk, no forced flirting, just two strangers talking like they'd known each other longer than they had any right to. He asked about my job, my life, my city, and actually listened, not waiting for his turn to speak, not scanning the room for someone better. When I asked about him, he didn't give rehearsed answers, didn't oversell himself, just told me pieces, enough to be interesting, enough to feel real. Hours passed without me noticing, drinks replaced without me remembering ordering them, and at some point, my friend texted that she was leaving with someone else, asking if I was okay, and I typed back yes without hesitation, surprised by how true it felt. When he asked if I wanted to get out of the noise, go somewhere quieter, my first instinct was to say no, to be responsible, to remember all the reasons I shouldn't. But something inside me, something tired and aching and curious, said yes before my brain could catch up. His apartment was close, clean but lived in, with books on the shelves and shoes kicked off by the door. Small details that made him feel human, safe, ordinary in the best way. We talked more there, sitting on opposite ends of the couch at first, the distance between us charged with everything unsaid. And when he finally leaned in and kissed me, it wasn't rushed or sloppy. It was slow, deliberate, like he was asking a question instead of making a demand. And I kissed him back, because for the first time in a long time, I wanted to. That night was intense in a way I hadn't experienced before, not just physically, but emotionally, like something cracked open inside me, like I was suddenly present in my own body again, feeling instead of performing, choosing instead of reacting. I remember lying awake afterward, staring at his ceiling while he slept, listening to his breathing, feeling a strange mix of comfort and fear. Because part of me knew this wasn't just a one-night thing in the way I'd expected. It had already gone deeper than that. In the morning, there was coffee, quiet laughter, soft conversation, no awkward rush to leave. And when I walked out of his apartment, the sunlight felt different, sharper somehow, like the world had been turned up a notch. I told myself it was just a good night, that I'd enjoy the memory and move on. But life doesn't always let you compartmentalize like that. We texted. Then we met again. Then again. Each time, the connection felt stronger, heavier, like something pulling us toward each other despite all logic. And then the truth came out, not all at once, but in pieces, in pauses, in sentences that stopped halfway. He wasn't single, not exactly. He was separated, but not legally divorced. He had a child. He had a life that was complicated and unfinished. And every rational part of me screamed that I should walk away, that this was how people got hurt, that this was how you lost yourself. But by then, I was already emotionally entangled, already invested in the version of him I'd come to know, the version that felt more real to me than anyone had in years. I hated myself for how quickly I justified it, for how easily I told myself stories about timing and fate and exceptions, for how I ignored the quiet voice inside me, warning that this would cost me something. The relationship that followed was intense, consuming, beautiful, and painful all at once, full of stolen moments and half-promises, of deep conversations at midnight and long stretches of uncertainty. I felt alive, desired, understood, but I also felt anxious, hidden, constantly waiting for clarity that never fully came. Friends warned me. I brushed them off. I told myself they didn't understand, that what we had was different, special, worth the risk. And then it ended. Not with a dramatic explosion, but with exhaustion, with reality finally pressing too hard to ignore. He chose his life, his child, the path that made sense, and I was left standing in the aftermath of something that had felt like destiny and turned out to be a lesson. For months afterward, I felt hollow, embarrassed by my own vulnerability, angry at him, angry at myself, replaying every moment, every choice, wondering how I'd let a single night turn into something that unraveled me so completely. But slowly, painfully, something else happened. I started to see myself more clearly. I realized how lonely I'd been, how much I'd been craving connection, how easily I'd poured myself into someone else instead of learning to sit with my own emptiness. That night didn't ruin my life, even though it felt like it did at the time. It forced me to confront parts of myself I'd been avoiding, forced me to grow in ways I never would have chosen voluntarily. I went to therapy. I rebuilt my routines. I learned how to be alone without feeling abandoned. And now, looking back, I don't romanticize it anymore, but I don't regret it either. That stranger didn't become my forever, but he became a turning point, a mirror, a catalyst. One night didn't define me, but it changed the direction I was walking in. And maybe that's the truth no one tells you, that sometimes the most life-altering moments don't come with warnings or grand significance. They come